Today we're talking about living a life without regrets. We had a pivotal experience that happened to us in late 2019 that was the impetus for us becoming full-time travelers. It's an unusual story with twists and turns that were unexpected. It's also why this channel isn't called Judy and Kevin, or something about retirement, or something about travel. If you've ever wondered why we call this channel Finding Gina Marie, you'll find out in a few minutes.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way. All right, this is a different episode. It's going to be a Q&A with Judy in the hot seat, and we'll just jump right into the questions. Let's talk first about your childhood. You always knew you were adopted, right?
Yes, ever since I could remember. I knew before I was even in kindergarten. I'd always fantasized about who my birth parents were, but I grew up in a very healthy and happy home. 2 brothers is a great situation. And in fact, I ended up meeting you when I was 14 and you were 16. So I was very grateful for the life that I'd been living. I had no reason to be sad or disappointed about anything.
Now, we both experienced family loss. My brother died when I was 5. He was 14 years my senior. My father died when I was 21. We had just gotten married. He didn't even make 61 yet. So I had regrets that I didn't spend more time with them. You had loss in your life that triggered some emotions and drove you to do certain things. You want to talk about that?
Sure. My adoptive mother was only 56 years old when she had died. She had been dealing with cancer for several years. And in the last year of her life, she and my father had retired from Buffalo, New York, where it was cold and snowy, to the warmth of Florida, where my father had always wanted to live. So they were finally starting to begin their retirement years together. They knew time was precious, and they just wanted to spend time together enjoying the rest of their lives.
But that turned out to be short-lived.
Yes, my mother's health had started to deteriorate, and I had been speaking with one of her doctors who had mentioned that we really needed to start thinking about her going into hospice. So even though it was just a week before Christmas, I didn't want to have any regrets that I didn't visit her before anything happened. Now, I didn't expect that she would end up passing away while I was there. But I was very grateful to be able to spend those last few days with her, and also to help my father transition with all of the paperwork and funeral arrangements that needed to be taken care of. Of course, my father was devastated. All of the hopes and dreams that they had had for their retirement went crashing to the ground.
But the good part was, while you were there, you were able to help with all the paperwork.
In the process of looking for documentation such as insurance paperwork, I came across a sealed envelope that had my name on it, and it turned out that that was my adoption papers. Of course, I opened it up, and one of the things that I was shocked to see was my birth name, which was Gina Marie.
Now, you've always been curious about your birth family, so what happened next?
For many years, I was just really busy raising a family, so I didn't have time to explore anything more. But I really did want to find my birth mother. I had assumed that I was an out-of-wedlock child based on the fact that I was born in 1964. And so I just really knew that it had to have been a very hard decision and a very brave decision for my birth mother to release me for adoption. And I just wanted to let her know how much I appreciated the decision and how grateful I was for the life that I did get to live.
Now, searching for your mother in the early days of the internet, when there wasn't much out there, was pretty tricky.
Right. I ended up hiring a private investigator, but it cost a lot of money, so it took some time to be able to save up. It was also complicated by the fact that I was born in New York, which has very strong privacy laws about adoption, so all of my records were sealed. All I could eventually come up with was non-identifying information. It wasn't really what I was looking for, but it was at least marginally helpful.
So let's fast forward to 2019. DNA services like 23andMe were becoming more popular. I wasn't a big fan of handing over biological data, but it turns out I was wrong. So tell us a little bit about how you use this tool to discover your family.
I wasn't too keen on sharing my DNA either. In fact, I come from a cybersecurity background, and I know how dangerous it is to share things that are supposed to be private and likely wouldn't stay that way. However, I just turned 55, and my adoptive mother had died at 56. And it really just kind of struck home that when I finally did make the decision to try to find my birth mother again, it might be too late. And I did not want to have regrets that I had waited too long. So this was one of the first times in our lives that I didn't tell you that I was doing this. And I just went ahead and ordered a DNA test, spit in a test tube, threw it in the mail, and later on I told you.
I do remember we were in Italy in November of that year and wandering through Milan trying to find a restaurant, whatever. I was getting very frustrated that you seemed so distracted on your phone. I'm trying to get us somewhere and you were not helping at all. I finally turned to you and I said, what are you looking at so important? Is something on Facebook that needs to be looked at right now? Can we just go to where we need to go? Tell me a little bit about what really was happening.
Well, when I was starting to look at restaurants, I saw an email come through and it was my DNA test. Well, of course I wanted to look at it, but you're wandering the streets. Internet service wasn't that great, but I wanted to see what was going on. One of the things that I did see was that I was already matched with a cousin, a distant cousin, and they had written to me saying that one of the reasons that they did a DNA test was they were also adopted. They didn't know I was, but they were adopted and they wanted to make sure that they weren't going to end up dating a cousin.
Spectacular start.
Yeah, it was not the kind of experience that I thought this would be, but I still was really excited to find out more about what the results had to say.
That's understandable. We were traveling, we had Christmas coming up, New Year's, the holidays are always a busy time. But I do remember that you moved forward right after that and you reached out to family members somehow?
We were just a couple of days into the new year, and I thought it's not too late for New Year's resolutions. So I went ahead and found all of the closest family members that were related to me in some way or another. And I used the non-identifying information that I had from the Private Investigator all those years ago, along with my DNA test, and sent an email asking if anybody might know who my family might be. Now, I was absolutely floored when not 10 minutes after I sent the last one, I heard from someone who ended up being a cousin who said, I think I know who your birth mother is. He also mentioned that she was alive and well, which was a huge relief to me.
Now here's where some of the strange stuff comes in. We both grew up in Cheektowaga, a suburb of Buffalo, New York. We lived there for our youth, and then we moved in 1985 to Houston, Texas. We lived there for 29 years until a tech offer came to me and moved us out to San Francisco in 2014. So the fact that we were doing all this research and everything in California, and now you started to connect with some family members. Tell me a little bit more about that and how that affected your brain and how shocked we were to find out that people were around us.
I was blown away to discover that my birth mother lived an hour-and-a-half flight away from us, and that I had an aunt who lived a mile away from us, and more family that lived a 45-minute drive from us, and another aunt who lived near my mother. I had no idea that so much family would have gone from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it just kind of felt like the universe was pulling us all together in the most beautiful way.
Speaking of bringing us all together, the fact that a family reunion happened days before the COVID lockdown is a miracle in itself. Tell me your thoughts about how you felt leading up to this.
I had been a secret from most of my birth family, so having everyone welcome me with open arms after I just pop into their world after 55 years was such a gift at how kind and generous they all were. Ironically, my adoptive mother, who knew that I had always wanted to find my birth family, had warned me that things don't always end up like they do on Oprah, and there aren't always happy endings. In this case, it really was the happiest of endings we could have had, and a beginning as well.
Besides the whole experience being wonderful, one of the cool surprises that we discovered was many of your family members had Italian dual citizenship.
There are a lot of rules about dual citizenship, and Italy is always changing them. But after doing a lot of digging, it turned out that I really would be able to qualify for dual citizenship. Now, of course, it's a tedious process, and it's a still ongoing one, but we're making strong headway finally.
Now, 2 years of lockdown changed a lot of things. For one, we decided to start this YouTube channel. I had started a YouTube channel in 2020 for reviewing whiskey. Whiskey Riffs was an offshoot of mine just to be creative. And I thought it wouldn't be too hard to start another channel.
And we did that in part because there wasn't enough happy news that people were hearing about. We thought that this reunion story was really a happy story and we wanted to share it. Also, we had always thought we would love to be expats somewhere. Originally, we thought about London, but knowing that we could be Italian expats, we wanted to share the story of us relocating to Italy. And we thought it would be fun to share all of the mindset and everything that we went through, the downsizing process, including finding a home. So we did a video on 6 cities that we explored in 12 days to figure out where we would end up living. We wanted to document all of the process.
So, Judy, do you recall how the name of the channel came to us?
Yes, Kevin. You're the one who came up with it. Big surprise. The name actually had multiple meanings. Of course, the most obvious is finding Gina Marie, me, my birth family, and also the fact that finding who I was led us to this life of becoming expats in Italy, and also finding ourselves in the process. We were both fairly unhappy in our jobs. We wanted to live a life without regrets. So taking a leap and retiring early and chasing after our dreams was all the part of a finding process. And we thought that the name really did encapsulate a lot of who we were and what our journey was about.
We also knew that we wanted to make connections with other people in the world, just like we did with your birth family.
We ended up about a year ago adding the travel the world part of Finding Gina Marie, only because we had someone say, oh, when I saw the name of your channel, I thought it was about finding a missing person. And I guess there's like an element to that, but not exactly. So we added Travel the World because we want to also inspire our viewers to travel the world and find themselves as well.
This is not a detective channel. Our channel began very differently than it is today. First, it was a podcast, kind of video podcast with us in the U.S. talking about how we would move to Europe. After we told Judy's origin story with her family, we were just going to describe the whole process of how we're going to get from living in the U.S. to living in Europe.
We had an entire downsizing series to kind of walk through the process as we were going through it, especially since we thought that that wasn't something that really we hadn't seen other channels do, and we wanted to share that information. It was a bit complicated for us to move to Italy right away, so we also were considering moving to Portugal, and we share that part of our journey as well while we were still living in the US and making those decisions. Eventually, we're starting to think that we didn't really want to live anywhere as expats. Especially after downsizing so much, we didn't want to just start over in another place and live the same life we'd been living.
We've been loving the full-time travel lifestyle and don't have any plans to become expats anytime in the future and settle down in one spot. Do you have any regrets?
None. I'm so grateful for us to be living the life that we're living. Eventually, someday far in the future, we're likely going to be settling in Italy, but that's a long time from now. We try to say as many yeses in our lives these days as we possibly can so that we can open ourselves up to all of the opportunities that lay ahead of us. We try not to live in fear.
We hope this episode has answered some of your questions about us, why we started this channel, and why we're so passionate about living a life with no regrets.
We're curious, are there things in your life that you're regretting or trying not to regret? We would love to hear about them. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, we would love for you to do that.
And check out findinggmarie.com. We have downloads, articles, our free community forum, and we have some behind-the-scenes benefits for our Gelato members if you want to check those out.
Until next time.
Until next time.
There are a lot of rules about dual citizenship, and Italy is constantly changing things, so we weren't really sure if it would be possible, but after a lot of digging...
Wow. I think we'll leave that part out.
But after a lot of digging, it turned out that there was a good likelihood that I would be able to be a dual citizen with Italy. But after a lot of digging, it turned out that really... But after doing a lot of digging... I'm going to start at the top there.
Oh, yeah.